Hello everyone, my name is Alex Silva and this is Image Weekly. Today I wanted to talk to you about a bit of a new trend in photography gear specifically. And I would say new using quotes because it's not really new. This is a trend that started a few years ago, but until recently it has gained a lot of traction and a lot of attention from many photographers. And sorry, and I'm talking about mirrorless cameras. And I actually mentioned before how I kind of switched. I had to switch from Canon, using a traditional SLR camera to a mirrorless system. And why I did that, well, there's a long story there, but I did the transition and I'm really happy about it. But what is mirrorless, or what is the difference between compared to DSLRs, and are they better? Are they? I don't know. So let's start with a bit of a background. And what are these different cameras? SLRs, you know them. I think this is not the oldest, but the most common or most popular camera design. This camera actually looks a lot like this one, and you can see a distinguishable camera body, and you can take the lens off it. And this is pretty much how many big name camera systems started, I think, in the 1930s. This is how Nikon, Canon, Minolta, and many other brands started their brands or their systems. And the main thing about this camera is that they use one lens compared to a previous design. And the main advantage is that you can see through the viewfinder. You can see exactly the same image that the lens is capturing even before you press the shutter button. So when you actually press the shutter button and the camera on the image gets captured, well, you know exactly what you're going to capture. They achieved this in the original design for DSLRs or SLRs using a mirror inside the camera that reflected the image to a prism or a set of other mirrors that directed the image to the viewfinder. And it was great. It is an amazing system that worked for many years, and it's still working. It has a bit of a disadvantage because the exact moment when you pressed or when the image gets captured, well, the mirror needs to get out of the way so the light can get to the sensor or the film. And in that particular instant, the viewfinder gets obstructed and gets blacked out. So you don't get to see the actual moment that it gets captured. And well, it's a bit of a disadvantage in some cases. So some time ago, we started seeing these new systems or some updates to previous systems. Back in the 80s, Canon updated their whole lineup with this electrofocus system, and so everything is electronic. And then in the 90s, we saw other changes, things like that. In the early 2000s, we saw that Panasonic and Olympus created their own system, which was open and things like that. It was at first named the 4/3 system. But that design uses a smaller sensor and, of course, smaller lenses, which are great. And since this is an open system, pretty much any brand can get the specifications and start producing their own lenses or camera bodies and things like that. And actually, there are Chinese manufacturers mostly that have taken advantage of that. And they then updated their design, removing the mirror and letting the camera shrink a bit more. And that is called the Micro Four Thirds system. That was the original mirrorless system. How do these cameras work? Well, it's very simple. Here we have an example. This is a Fujifilm X-T2, and as you can see, if I remove the lens, you can see this sensor. You can see the sensor right away. There is no mirror in the way, and the sensor is always active, so it's on constantly. When the camera is on, the sensor is always active and always reading an image through the lens and projecting it first to the screen, or if you get close enough, you will activate the electronic viewfinder. And that's pretty much it. It has pretty much the same advantages of the SLR design. You get to see exactly what you're going to photograph. And actually, you get to see a bit more. Usually, the viewfinder in SLR cameras does not show the complete frame. It shows like 95%. That it's not a big difference. But in some cases, you may notice that difference when you compare what you were seeing to what I was actually captured. In the case of mirrorless systems, whether it is from Panasonic, Olympus, Fujifilm, and other brands, you get to see on the screen or on the viewfinder the whole frame, even a bit more in some cases. So you get to see the complete picture, so it's this is a major advantage of it. Of course, there are some others, like you can simulate the exposure here, so you get to see exactly if you're getting under or overexposed, or if you need to ignore the exposure meter and make your own adjustments. So it's really versatile, and these cameras have gained a lot of traction and a lot of attention lately. Mostly, well, of course, the Micro Four system from Panasonic and Olympus has evolved a lot and has improved a lot, but also there are some other new designs like Fujifilm, which just jumped directly to the mirrorless technologies, and they have produced APS-C sensor bodies, but also medium format bodies. And you can see, for example, Sony with their E-mount system, and they do have APS-C and full format cameras, and they are just amazing because without the mirror in the way, they can do quite a few things with electronic aids. For example, in these cameras or in Sony's, you can go and use electronic shutters, which allow you to shoot way faster than an 1/8,000th of a second. You can go beyond that usual limit, and you can shoot, let's say, at 1/32,000th of a second if you need to. And there are many other advantages, or there are many other big advances that have come from mirrorless cameras. And actually, many big name photographers have switched systems to a mirrorless system. I will link to those stories below, but it's really interesting how one of the main advantages in many cases is that you get more or less or very similar results than you would get on a full frame or even mirrorless cameras with a way smaller body and lenses. So it is a great system if you are a traveling photographer. I remember the case of Eli Locardi, which is a pretty well-known travel photographer. Or the guys from F-Stoppers, they completely switched their whole video production system to mirrorless systems. And they are really happy because they get the same results using way smaller and lighter bodies and lenses. Of course, there are a few exceptions. I've mentioned before the Sony system, which is great, don't get me wrong. It is amazing. However, the Sony A7s or the A9, they are full frame sensors, and when it comes to optics, you cannot reduce the lens if you use the same sensor, sorry, as other cameras, traditional cameras. So if you take a look, let's say, sorry, at the 70 to 200 2.8 from Sony, sorry, and you compare it to Canon's, it's pretty much the same size and weight. So there was not a big advantage there. In terms of the lens, the camera body probably is lighter and smaller than, let's say, a 5D Mark IV or something like that, but the lenses are still big in the particular case of Sony full frame mirrorless. However, if you want to use the Sony APS-C sensors, yeah, of course, those lenses will be lighter and smaller. So I think that is the main advantage in terms of having the same quality with a lighter and more portable system. But as I mentioned before, it's not for everyone. If you seriously need really high numbers of megapixels, or you seriously need the definition that you get, or the depth of field that you get from full frame sensors or medium format cameras, absolutely go with that. But if you're a traveling photographer who is looking for something lighter, or you're not only traveling, but if you constantly shoot on location, or you need to move around, you're a destination wedding photographer, something like that, you probably need something lighter. And yes, mirrorless systems might be the way to go. I really hope this video helps you. And if you like, please like the video. Sorry. If you'd like to receive more information like this, well, you can subscribe to the channel or subscribe to the weekly newsletter if you prefer the written blog. And of course, if you think I missed something or want to add to the conversation, leave a comment, whether it is on YouTube or on the blog post. And if you probably didn't quite understand a few of the terms like depth of field and things like that, or definition or resolution, things like that, you probably want to take my introductory class to photography. It's an online course, it's free, and you can find it at learnphotographyin7days.com. And please remember, keep learning and keep shooting.